go to Tim Phillips, the president of Americans for Prosperity. Tim, where are you from politically? What's your story? Who are you politically?
I'm a free market conservative.
Are you one of the people that questions the president's legitimacy as president?
No, absolutely not.
You're not a birther or anything like that.
Look, I tell folks I want to focus on what his policies will do to us.
Let's clarify that. You're not a birther. Any of those.
That is correct.
And what about Sarah Palin? Because she's out there. Well, I just want to get this because we've got voices out there like Glenn Beck, who's a smart guy, but he knows how to stir things up. And you got Sarah Palin this weekend talking about death panels, and then apparently she's pulled back.
Right.
Let's try to get some civility about this. What do you want politically out of this health care bill? What would you like to see at the end of the day, as they say, in this health care debate?
First and foremost, we don't want a bill that drives cost up. No, what do you
want? No, I will not have that conversation with you. What do you want?
I want to see better choices and more choices for American citizens, not mandates, but tax incentives that reward behavior.
How do we do that? How do we get that? And what are we doing to get that?
Well, first we can push and expand HSAs. I do think that they are not the be-all, end-all, but they're a good starting point for broadening people's choices and giving them a better opportunity to control their own destiny on the health care front. I also think that we ought to allow people to choose coverage from across state lines. This current system is not good. I mean, it locks you in within your state.
Who's got a bill like that? Who's involved in the debate on Capitol Hill that's pushing what you want?
Congressman Ryan from Wisconsin has a good bill that's a starting point. Senator DeMint in the Senate, we've looked at his legislation, and we think both of those pieces of legislation are good pieces that are good starting points for discussion.
Let's talk about some of the things in the president's bill, and you give me your critique of what you like or dislike about it. These are, I looked at the New York Times today. Whatever you think of the New York Times, they did an analysis. I want your judgment on this. Encourage people, in fact, mandate people when they reach young adulthood to get involved in health insurance. In other words, you can't be waiting around till you're 45 years old and get a disease to say, I think I better buy health insurance. Do you like the idea of requiring people to have health insurance at a young age?
I do not. I don't think it's good for the government to be mandating and requiring that, so I'm opposed to that.
Well, they mandate you buy a when you get a driver's license to go out on the road, you have to have insurance to drive a car. You don't like that either? Or what
I don't want government reaching in.
Wait a minute. Do you want people to have insurance when they drive a car?
I think that's a decent mandate, absolutely.
And it's a decent mandate.
Hold on.
I'm holding on. I'm giving you all the time you want, buddy. Don't do this hold on crap with me, okay? I'm letting you talk. I know the tactics.
Chris.
Talk.
Thanks, Chris.
No, just talk. You don't have to say thanks, Chris. Just talk.
I want people, when you have health care, that's a choice that impacts yourself. Driver's insurance impacts other drivers you may have accidents with.
But when you go to a hospital, just to make the other side of the argument, you go to a hospital and you show up in the ER and you have to the hospital, which is required to give service to everybody, aren't you putting your costs of your health care on somebody else's insurance if you're not insured?
It's not necessarily someone else's insurance. It can impact their cost eventually. I don't think it's right, though, for the government to be mandating health insurance, reaching into your accounts and doing that. I don't want to see that with health care.
But we mandate hospitals to do ER coverage of everybody when they show up. So we are forcing hospitals to foot the bill, and hospitals put the cost on the people who buy insurance. You know that. They
do put the cost on the people who buy insurance, but I don't want to see government reaching in and hitting their pocketbooks and requiring them on the insurance front. I want to encourage them, maybe give tax incentives again to incentivize behavior. I don't think mandates are the way to go on this.
Well, how do we get around the problem that there's so many people out there, and this is why we're having this debate, sir. It isn't just so that Barack Obama gets a W next to his name or that the conservatives get an L next to his name. The question that's bothered the American people since Teddy Roosevelt's time is some people have health insurance and some don't. How do we reconcile that with our sense in this country of looking out for each other to some extent? To some extent.
I think that with young people especially, a lot of it is encouragement. You know, I've got a kid who's going out of the home now, and he thinks he's bulletproof in many ways.
I got kids like that too.
And we can encourage them to do it, because I know when I was in my 20s, until I got married, I didn't go out and get insurance, and that was a foolish mistake I made. I could have had a catastrophic occurrence that would have wiped me out financially and put the burden on other people. So I think education for young people is a lot, because they're the biggest block, as I understand it, looking at the numbers of the uninsured.
Okay. You know, when I hear somebody like you speak, and you worked on the Hill like I did, and I know you're a serious wonk like I was once, let me ask you this. Here's my problem with you guys. The conservatives talk reasonably when the Democrats get in power and say, well, we have an alternative that's more free market. market, it's less onerous, it's less, big shot, big government stuff. And I accept all that. But when you guys are in power, you don't do anything on health care. And that's what happens, and that's why for, God, almost a century of foot drag to this. The Democrats get in power, whether it's Truman or it's Bill Clinton or it's Hillary Clinton or it's Barack Obama, they try something and fails. Because you guys are good at playing negative politics. You're really good at destroying Democrats' planned chances to reform. But when you get in power, when you have George W. Bush in there in both houses of Congress, or you got Reagan in there with complete ideological control, you don't do anything on health care.
I think Republicans got off the tracks when they took over and had the presidency and the entire Congress. They missed a lot of opportunities, Chris. Health care was one of them. Spending was the biggest one they missed, though. They blew it out of the water on spending, and that limits the ability now to take on some of the entitlements and to take on some of the bigger issues because they missed the spending argument so badly during their time in power. I think it's one reason they got kicked out, too, by the way. American people got tired of it.
Tim, at the end of the year, if you guys bring down health care and it can't get through the Senate, suppose they can't reach a compromise between the health and the finance committees, they can't reach a compromise in conference. I think this whole thing could be a bridge too far. I see a lot of hurdles ahead where you can stop them in any way. And by the way, you got a lot of opportunities to ambush these guys. At the end of it all, if Barack Obama crashes and fails at the end of the year, what will the Republicans ever do on health care now that they got the ball in their hands because they blew it out of this guy's hands? What are you going to do when you get your chance to do it?
I think they have an opportunity. I mentioned Congressman Ryan from Wisconsin. He is a serious guy who's looking at this issue. He has a pretty broad plan, as Senator DeMint. I think what they need to do is go back to those plans, and for every time they've said no, and us too as an organization, Americans for Prosperity, as we've said no to different mandates, no to more spending, we need to say yes to some of these reforms, and some of them are good. Again, I mentioned one of the most basic reforms is allowing folks to get insurance across state lines. Chris, and you know the numbers on that, it would dramatically reduce cost and open up options for people, and I think that's the most important thing. When I worked on Capitol Hill, I had the best health care plan probably in the world, and one of the reasons why it let me choose a broad array of plans, and that's the kind of thing we need to get to.
Okay, here's the problem I have. The Republican Party takes so much money from the insurance companies, your leadership takes so much money from the insurance companies that, like the status quo, they make a bundle. Guys like John Boehner, the golfer, and Mitch McConnell, who reminds me of George Will exponentially, ideologically, those guys don't say what you're just saying. They're not going to do anything on health care. So when you talk about Ryan and you talk about DeMint and these ideas that proposed, the leadership of the Republican Party doesn't do anything on health care. Year after year after year, they've had the ball. With Reagan, with George W. Bush, with George Bush Sr., they had the ball, and you guys never do anything. And then when Barack Obama tries to do something with the ball, all of a sudden you guys come alive, you disrupt meetings, you're brilliant at it, you are so good at playing defense, but you don't have an offense.
2 points to that. One, I think there are a wave of Republican leaders coming who are genuinely coming up with good ideas and good solutions. I think they like to call Tom Coburn Senator. No, he's got some great proposals on health care.
My kids love Coburn. You know what? When I watch these hearings, we'll show these meetings over and in. I don't see civil discussion like you and I are having. I see people screaming, trying to shut down meetings, so there is no discussion. But Tim Phillips, I hope I let you talk.
Can I have one more point, Chris? Just one more?
Go ahead.
When I look at these town hall meetings, we are encouraging our membership. We're doing emails and calls saying come out. And I've been to a lot of these meetings in the last few weeks. The vast majority of people, Chris, are civil. I think Congressman Inglis did say that just now. And I think as with the anti-war movement earlier this decade, there are always some people who take it over the edge and are inappropriate. But I'm telling you, the vast majority of Americans at these meetings are coming out on their own, and they're civil when they're there.
Okay, let me tell you. This has been put out by the group called Right Principles. This is what they tell people to do. Rock the boat early in the meeting. Watch for an opportunity to yell out, shout outs, embolden others to call out and yell out. These are instructions to people who go to these meetings, so they're not encouraging them to discuss or listen. Tim.
I know our organization does not do anything like that. We're urging people to come out. And for Speaker Pelosi to call these Americans with a broad stroke un-American, I think that's wrong. I think she's painting with too broad a brush there, Chris.
Okay, well said. Thank you, Tim Phillips. Thank you for coming on the show.